Welcome to my show. A guest here. His name is Nate Payne. Mr. Nate, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Nate. And also, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a leadership coach and the creator of Living System Leadership. Can you please, Mr. Nate, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mr. Nate?
Sure. Well, I my career started in retail banking for a number of years. And then I made a transition about 30 plus years ago into the technology space, which was very much like the Wild Wild West back then. It was new. We didn't know where it was going, and but it was a chance to get into a growing industry. And so it was pretty exciting back then. So I went through the different stages, working my way through help desk and desktop support and systems engineering and all of those things, manager and up the ladder. And along the way, the challenge that I found in reading all the different leadership books, taking leadership courses, right? You want to be a great leader. I think anyone who steps into that role wants to do that. But there were so many opinions. And so many of those opinions were contradictory. And so as time went on and things got more complex, the conversations with senior leadership became a little more difficult because we're talking about technology, they're talking about business goals and initiatives. And so it was a challenge to sort of bridge that gap. And I was looking for something to do that. The story is actually very funny because I started a managed services company. It's technology services for smaller businesses. And I was just simply looking for a way to help them align technology with their business so that they could easily understand that the money they were spending was going towards something they really cared about. And I struggled to find something out there that existed that would make that easy and repeatable, right? Because if you're an IT person within an organization and you're there every single day, you get to know people, they trust you, you have rapport. When you have 50 or 100 different companies that you're working with, it's hard to build that rapport. They don't see you every day. So I needed a tool for that. So one night I'm watching television, a documentary comes on called The Serengeti Rules. And I thought it was about taking a safari. Honestly, I didn't know what it was about. But as I watched it, it talked about ecosystems and how they work together, the interdependencies and keystones and all of these things. It was absolutely fascinating. And it was in that moment I realized, I said, oh, this is just like a business. A business is an ecosystem, and we've been treating it like a machine. And it was that moment that living systems leadership, well, I didn't have a name or anything for it, but that concept of, wow, maybe we should look to nature. Because if you think about it, it has to sustain itself, it has to grow, it has resilience, it has adaptation.
Yes.
What are the rules? What are the laws? What's the intelligence within nature that allows it to do it for billions of years? What can we learn? And so that's how the journey started.
And you see how beautiful Mr. Nate is. The idea for creating the living system leadership wasn't the first thing you have in mind. After leaving your retail work and actually building something, you are actually building it along the way before you start to realize that I think we can reshape this to actually make it to become something that will be so much impactful in a very, very huge way. And that is also a
Yes.
message, some people, what we actually bring in the first place might not be the product that we'll see, but with time, we start to learn, we start to grow, and we start to
Yes.
see the beauty that comes out of it. Then we start to get the direction. We don't need to just get
Yes.
everything at once at the same time. So I sincerely appreciate you for those beautiful insights, Mr. Nate.
Yes.
And also from the experience you've had as the person who has dived into the leadership aspect, have you written any book or do you think you are planning to write any book in the coming future, Mr. Nate?
Oh, wow. Great question. Yes. Actually, we are in the final editing stage. And of course, the book is called Living Systems Leadership. And we go through the 15 core principles of living systems leadership. Uh, and we do so from almost a storytelling, right? We take these different ecosystems from aquifers and forests and coral reefs, and we show the lessons, the leadership lessons that live within those ecosystems, and how you can then apply those in a practical manner within your organization and with your team.
Thank you so much. We'll definitely be expecting the book because it really help one when it comes to an organization. Because before we can move forward in life, we have to build something. We have to build a team, or we have to build something that will make us to be fertile enough to actually build something that will actually become a very huge success in the coming future. And I would just like to
Yes.
dive to the area where many listeners, they work in fast-paced environments and environments where
Mhm.
everything just work very, very fast. How do you think, from the experience you've had, Mr. Nate, they can begin to prioritize personal growth without feeling like they are falling behind professionally, Mr. Nate?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I don't see a distinction between the two. And I'll give you an example from nature. You think about a tree. The tree has to establish roots first. That's our personal growth. That's us preparing ourselves to grow branches. Those branches will then in turn support fruit, which is really what we're after, right? What we call success in the end. So they are one and the same, but you must establish those roots first, and that is your personal growth. And here's what's really great about personal growth: it, it stays with you. It's the best investment that you ever make. There are things I did 40 years ago. I still benefit from those things. Books that I read, I'm still benefiting from it. So personal growth, um, there is not one or the other. There's no such thing, by the way, of falling behind. When you set your mind to something and you start moving towards it, that's it. The timing, no, that does not belong to you. But there is no such thing as wasting time if you're going to invest in the one person who will always be with you, and that's you.
I sincerely appreciate that. That shows that foundation is very, very important.
Mhm.
We are
Yes.
the ones that should give the answers to ourselves. We do know we can seek advice out there and stuff like out there, but despite that, the answers is always right at the front of us. Personal growth and getting to the
Mhm.
root with us and getting to understand who we are better, getting to understand the perspective we are very, very good at, and developing it at that stage. How can one believe, as you said earlier, something you've learned in recent years, more than 10 years, you are actually, some of it are actually the things that actually you are actually using that is of benefit. That shows that the root is grounded and is strong enough to actually
Yes.
execute some certain things in life. And those are the things we have to try our best to build on. When we build on those little things regarding we as humans, then it will be so easy for us to build a team, build an organization, or even build something that will be a success
Yes.
in the future. And that is why I would like to
Absolutely.
dive to the area whereby organization culture often mirrors leadership behavior. When we are in an organization, the culture often mirrors that sense of leadership behavior. How do you think the listeners can also, in most especially in management positions, model
Mm.
growth and authenticity in ways that inspire their teams, Mr. Nate?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good question. So let's start with authenticity. It's not performance, right? It's it's clarity. It's allowing people to see with transparency what's going on. And so let's start at the very beginning. As a leader, I mean, even as just individual, right? Team members, individual contributors, everything about our life is a decision, right? And every decision is a trade off. Some of us forget that. Everything that we say yes to, we're saying no to 100 other things, right? Right now, you and I have made a decision to have this conversation. It's a trade off, right? I'm not vacuuming, right, the living room. I'm not cutting the grass. You're not making something to eat. We made a trade off. So the key here is to help people understand through transparency what those trade-offs are. So I may make a decision and you don't like the decision. But as I become transparent and I say, well, here were the trade-offs we had to make. This is why we made this decision. This is what we were faced with. You still may not like the decision I made, but you appreciate the honesty. And that's where the trust comes. Right? So first we start with transparency. That's how you start building what we call authenticity. Now, second, we need to be consistent with that, right? It's what we call rhythm, right? It's people want that cadence. I want to feel comfortable. That's what builds safety, is that this structure within my organization will hold me. Whether this person leaves and another person comes in, who cares? The structure is what holds me, not my boss who has this great personality. This is what they preach to us, right? We make leadership about the person, and I'm I'm just saying I don't subscribe to that model. I think personal growth is incredibly important, but really we should be looking to design systems that support people, not heroes or superstar leaders to do so.
Thank you so much. We are all humans, and if we can be in a position to support ourselves in a meaningful and a right way, then we are going to thrive. Not that we are going to credit some other
Mhm.
people than others. We see everyone as one, and we show the love and compassion to every single one that we find around us. Those are the qualities, as you said, authenticity and also
Yeah.
honesty. When we are honest with ourselves and we are more transparent, as you said, with ourselves, then we can build on that. Then even
Mhm.
despite anyone, as you said, leaves that organization, we are still staying grounded. Even if anyone comes in, we find it very comfortable to welcome such person and embrace such person as one, because we do not have the sense of ego, and we show ourselves compassion, authenticity, and also
Yes.
transparency as well. Those are the very, very important. That is why it comes back to the roots, ourselves as well. I would just like to dive to
Mhm.
people who really feel unseen or undervalued at work. Some people, when they go to work, they feel unhappy because they feel like they are unseen and they're undervalued, and they really get worried. So, what do you think are some ways to cultivate this sense of personal influence and confidence, even without a formal title, Mr. Nate?
Yeah. Really good question. So it's funny. I did a talk about this. The question was, who's the real boss? Okay. The customer is the real boss. So let's start from the very top. The organization exists to solve a problem for a person or a group of people, and to deliver an outcome. The problem that they're solving is so painful to the customer that they're willing to pay you to solve it. It's the beauty of it. Okay. So now we turn inward to the organization. The influence is built through finding the friction points, right? The bottlenecks that are slowing us down, that are preventing us in some way from solving that problem that's incredibly important to that customer. So, as an example, I'm going to always go back to nature, okay? Because that's my teacher. If you think about a river, the flow of that river is really determined by the narrowest point in that river, right? And so in our organization, there's always some point that bottlenecks a little bit. There's always something that we miss, some handoff that doesn't happen. Look to solve those problems. Look to smooth the frictions, to expand the bottlenecks. Look to create better flow. Those are ways that align with your personal growth, but also contribute significantly to the organization and then ultimately to the customer, right? Who is your real boss.
Wow, that is very, very beautiful. It shows that we do understand. Sometimes we are in the job that we feel unseen, undervalued. We
Mhm.
feel really down most of the time that what are we actually doing wrong? But it comes back to ourselves. As you said, we have to look at the little, little things we think we know that we can try our best to develop. We have to look at the little errors we see in ourselves in that organization. When we do that, then we recognize those areas. When we recognize it, then we start to work on those little areas. We do know sometimes it might be really difficult. It is not easy most of the time to give a little bit shift from the way we do from recent years, but it is necessary for us to actually start to feel seen, because despite we not being seen, there will be something that we are actually lacking when it comes to some qualities regarding such team or organization. And we have to figure it out, work on it, and see how we can pass through that. As you said, a river, we check through the narrow, then see how we can develop that to make ourselves more recognized and also seen in the area we find ourselves. And also, I would just
Yeah.
like to drive to the point of growth and culture. It sometimes clash when companies prioritize profits over people. How do you think listeners can try their best to advocate for healthier cultures that still deliver that result, Mr. Nate?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because again, this is goes back to um, the days when of factories and the Industrial Revolution, and it was a different time, and it required a different type of leadership and a different type of organization. And a lot of what we do today is really just sort of a rehashed version of the leadership from 100 years ago, right? And this is where we want to shift our minds, thinking more to ecosystem than factory, where we're making a part, and that part is the same, and we're just stamping out those parts. That totally works. Today, that's not what we're in. There's too much complexity, right? There's too much interdependency globally. It's just technology, everything's shifting. That model doesn't work anymore. The companies that understand you don't have to choose one over the other. So if you want to maximize your output, your harvest for one season, great. Then you push it. But eventually you you deplete the soil, and now nothing will grow there anymore. Right. So nature shows us everything has a season and a time and a place. There's a time for us to plant, there's a time to grow, there's a time to harvest, and then there is a time to rest, to regenerate. We don't have to follow that rule, but when we don't, we do it to our detriment, right? This idea that we're just going to always keep our foot on the gas and we're going to keep going and profit, profit, profit. That's great. And in the short term, it works. But the business is not just about growth, it's also about sustainability. And you absolutely can't sustain that pace, which is why everything in nature has a piece of it, whether it's the cycles of the moon, whatever you want to look at, there's always a season for everything. So this is a mindset shift that needs to happen within leaders. And one of them that I'm hoping to bring to people is that rest is part of performance. It's not separate. Reflection is performance. The wave comes out, the wave comes in, the wave comes out, the wave comes in. It's all part of one thing. And so we tend to separate that and say, well, rest is inefficient or reflection slows us down. And it's absolutely not true. Um, the system that has lasted billions of years would argue that its way is better than our way.
I totally agree. And it's just one thing we do know. Growth is very important. The profit is always there, but there are always a lot of things we also need to consider, most especially as leaders. There are a lot of qualities because on the short term, it usually works well for us. But on the long term, we start to see the clashes, the damages. We start to see some people just, just willingly leaving the job, there is nothing. So we have to just try our best. As you said, rest is also a part of it. And resting is one of the
Yes.
most important things. To be honest, people don't really see rest as something necessary in our time because we live in a very fast-paced world. Everything just go very, very fast. But we have to also understand that when we rest, there are a lot of things that we actually balance through our brain and also our body as well. Those little, little things that we take for granted, despite our company and the companies giving the profits and growth, are things we should take a little bit also more seriously so that we won't face more type of health challenges or a lot of challenges that could also cause some setback in the companies along the way. So I sincerely appreciate that beautiful insight. I would also like to drive to the point of empathy. In diverse teams, growth often requires empathy because when the growth comes in, empathy is something that we actually need to hold and actually need to develop in a diverse team. So, how do you
Mhm.
think leaders and also employees as well create physiologically they create physiologically safe environment where everyone feels safe and heard and valued, Mr. Nate?
Yes. So, empathy, psychological safety, um, we tend to think about them as feelings, and really they're outputs of structure. When you have healthy soil, the plants reflect that. Okay. This is a very simple, basic lesson, but we totally miss this lesson. So if I go outside and I say, "Oh wow, what's going on here?" and I see a couple, leaves and they're curling or they're turning brown, they're turning yellow, and I go, "Oh wow, this plant is no good." I wouldn't say that. I would say, "What's going on? Is it not getting enough water? Is it getting too much water? Too much sun? It's very hot where I am. Maybe it's too much sun, right? Maybe it's not getting enough nutrients." But the understanding is that everything, psychological safety, trust, healthy culture, they're all emergent from the structure and the system that you're building. And that's why I say leadership is not about the individual performance. It's really about system design. What do I need to do so that the outcomes I want emerge naturally? It's a very simple thing, right? So if I have a plant that grows very well in a particular geographic part of the country, and I go, "Oh, that's a beautiful plant. I want that plant in my backyard." I have to ask myself some questions. Is my environment such that it will support that plant? And so this is the part that we miss. So empathy is absolutely important, emotional intelligence, psychological safety, but those are all emergent from a healthy system. And so now the question is really, how do we design those systems so that those things happen naturally? Because if you feel psychologically safe, if you feel really tied and comfortable at your job because you have a wonderful boss, that's fantastic. But what happens when that boss leaves? See, we spend so much time in all our leadership books building up the individual that the individual actually becomes the weak spot in the organization, right? Because everybody goes to that person. When that person leaves, everything falls apart, right? And some leaders would take that as a compliment, right? Where it's like, "Oh, this person is irreplaceable." That's not a compliment, right? You should have a system such that if that leader leaves, the system keeps on being supportive. Empathy still exists. It wasn't in that individual, although personally they may have been empathetic, but we built it into the culture. It's embedded in how we do things here. And that goes back to our rituals and our rhythms, the way we talk to each other, the way we structure meetings, what's allowed, what's not allowed, how we approach each other, and then making sure there's consistency with that. And that's what makes me feel safe when it's consistent, right? What I expect is what I get. And over time, all those things that you want, trust, they all come naturally.
That shows that everything we do is more connected with nature and
Mhm.
system. It's very powerful. The way you explain this thing, it shows that the base point of having a team that or having an organization whereby things actually goes in the right way, despite anyone who actually even lives along the way. This team still stay strong, the organization still stay strong and grounded, and it is still
Mhm.
growing. Despite the issues, the challenges, it goes back to the system, the way we run the organization itself. And the way we run it actually gives the sense of how it is going to give the development naturally. Because when we do the right thing
Mhm.
and we bring down the right system, when the time comes, just naturally, the right things start to come in. What we need to do start to come
Yes.
in. Despite anyone who is not available, we still continue and everything still go at peace. And that is the
Yes.
beauty of a successful team, because if a such team exists, those type of team are going to really try, because we all understand ourselves, we all build a system, and we all give ourselves the kind of boundaries and also rules regarding the way we do our things. And if we can maintain that on the long term, then beauty comes out in the coming future. I sincerely appreciate you for that beautiful
Mhm.
insight, Mr. Nate. I sincerely appreciate you for that. And also, Mr. Nate, there is a question I also normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mr. Nate, what do you think that thing will be, Mr. Nate?
Who are we? We say be yourself,
Yeah.
right? But do we know what the self is? And is the self the person that I see in the mirror? Is the self the thoughts that I have? Or is the self something higher than that? I think understanding and going back and finding the answers to the who am I, right? Because everyone there is, they will tell you what to do, they will tell you how to do it. I, I want to know why. Because once you have an understanding, now I have discernment, I have wisdom, I have autonomy to behave in an aligned way with nature. We can fight it all we want to. If you think about it, life is a gift. People say life is a gift, and it is, but it's not the only gift. Right? We have consciousness, because you can be alive with no consciousness. So I would say consciousness is a gift along with life. You have free will, right? You have agency. Those are the four gifts. And in my humble opinion, when you say, how are we created in the image of God? That's how we're created in the image of God, is because we have those things. And what do we do with those? And I will say that nature and living systems is more than just for our enjoyment and our pleasure and our sustenance. I believe they are messages, there are patterns, there's an intelligence, and there's a logic that tells us how to organize ourselves and how to live our lives.
Totally agree with you. It is not easy. We do know in the world we find ourselves, it is not easy. But most of the time, the answer usually comes back to we as humans. We have to develop our roots. We have to know who we
Mm-hmm.
really are. It is when we know the kind of
Yes,
person we are, we can't be the same with others. When we know the quality we are, that is when we start to know what we need to do, how we can do it, and what's best for us. If we can do that, I
yes,
think we even live a life whereby we are more happier because we feel sustained, we feel satisfied despite anything that comes along our way. We feel very much satisfied because we are doing
yes,
what we are comfortable with. And that is one of the best way
yes,
to actually figure out who we are. We can't get the answer from anyone. It's always within us. We have to sit down ourselves and drive this answer
yes,
out. And that is just the truth. I also want to use
yes,
this opportunity, Mr. Nate, to thank you for the time, the opportunity you've given to me today. I sincerely appreciate the second chance despite everything. And I thank you for actually coming back to actually have this discussion with me. Thank you so much,
yeah,
Mr. Nate.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Nate. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Nate. Bye bye.
All right, you too. Bye now.